Welcome to Creative Piecemeal. I'm Tammy Takeishi, a board-certified music therapist. Join me each week as a new guest from across the fine and creative arts spheres shares struggles, triumphs, laughs, words of wisdom, and more in authentic, thought-provoking, and inspiring interviews. Hello and welcome to Creative Piecemeal. Today I'm joined by novelist Dr. James R. Gregory. He has a book coming out in January 2025 called Killer App. And in the thought-provoking story, journalist Bryce Bogle discovers AIME, an AI writing assistant that propels his work to new heights. But as the program uncovers unsettling details about Bryce's personal life and is refusing to be uninstalled, he's thrust into a high-stakes battle for control over his career, his privacy, and his very identity. Killer App explores timely and critical questions. What happens when technology surpasses its creator's control? How do we balance innovation with ethical responsibility? And what if AI ever truly self-actualized? So, Jim, I'm excited to have you here on the show to talk about how you got into writing and your novel, which is, I think, very well timed, especially as AI becomes, quote unquote, smarter every day. So welcome and excited to have you here.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you for the invitation.
I'd love to get started with what made you decide to become an author and specifically write Killer App right now?
Well, I have a long career in the communications business in New York, in Manhattan, and I worked with my wife over 40 years, and we had a consulting firm that was quite successful. And what was really fun is when I sold it in 2013, it opened up the world of possibilities to me to do something else. And I had written a number of business books prior to that. So I knew how to write, but fiction is a whole different ballgame, and it is fun. I have had so much fun doing this. And today it happens to be the first day of Killer App's release. So I am very excited about that. And then I wanted to write about a topical subject. I wanted to write about the issues, real issues, like things like privacy and job displacement and bias and accountability and deception. And all of those things are in the book as projected by artificial intelligence made easy, Amy, the antagonist in the book.
Nice. What is something that you learned about writing the business books and running your business that you carried through into the creative aspect?
That's an interesting question. I wrote business books because it helped promote our company. I had a specialty, which was accountability for corporations in terms of their brands, their corporate brands. And I wrote books to explain to senior executives how that works and how communications and advertising and honesty and trust all matter in terms of building your corporate reputation. And as a result of that, it has an impact on your stock price. So all of those things seem like, they're kind of threads that into my fiction writing. The accountability or how to close a deal or the interaction between people, executives and other workers and that sort of thing. And so I see that, my situations where I'm describing people, often I'm relating to an actual scene that in my mind of something that actually happened.
I would love to talk about your creative process. You said it was fun to dive into fiction. What was one of your favorite things in writing fiction? And then something that you didn't expect about the creative process with fiction writing?
Interesting. I love character development. My previous book that came out last year is called Zephyr's War. And Zephyr is the main character in there, which is a crazy name. And I just came out of it, the first day I was writing that book, that was the main character. And Zep had a brother named Ziggy. So it was Zep and Ziggy Zephyr. And it was just, I loved developing those characters and building them up into the people that they were. And when I develop a character, I really have a clear idea of who this person is. And quite often it's based on somebody I've met in my life or had as a client or a potential client or just somebody that I know socially. And I don't tie it in so closely that they would know. That's not exactly true. There is one friend that is in every story and different forms in every story. And he knows it. So it's kind of an ongoing joke. And that keeps it interesting too. Just doing that and knowing that there's a joke that nobody else will know except this one person.
That's clever. I like that idea. And I totally agree with you. Character development is so interesting, so fun. Taking bits and pieces of people we know and love, or maybe even just strangers, and just sort of compiling it together and seeing what our imagination does.
Absolutely. It can be a person just walking down the sidewalk or a waitress it can be absolutely anything that can spark that the creative spark will launch from that. And you can develop a whole person just on a glance at somebody. And I really enjoy that. And then I love developing the story. A lot of writers suggest that you have an outline and you follow the outline, and that's how to be very productive with your writing. Well, I don't do that. I write one line and then it's followed by another line, and that's how the story develops. And I don't know how it's going to end when I start it. I have a vague idea where I'm going with it, but I really enjoy the fun and the ebb and flow of the actual story writing. And as you do it, it's really neat. Sometimes you go to a dead end, like you've painted yourself into a corner. Getting out of that is extraordinary. I was stuck for the end of Zephyr's War. I was stuck on how I was going to end it. And I couldn't write for a couple of weeks. Now, I don't usually have writer's block, but for 2 weeks, I really was stuck on how I wanted a spectacular ending. And it came to me in a dream. I woke up and I finished the book that day. It's just fun. It's the same way with painting. All my life, I've been an artist, and I just love the creative process of painting and every blank piece of paper, every blank canvas is an opportunity to create a masterpiece. And I feel the same way about the books. I probably have not created any masterpieces in my life, but I'm hopeful. Hope springs eternal.
Yeah, there you go. And I love that you mentioned that you paint. I think it's fantastic when people are able to discover different creative outlets. And, they may not necessarily make a business out of it, but it's something that fills their soul.
My mother painted, I painted, my daughter paints, and my grandkids paint. And it's something that we have, it's just locked in, it's just part of us. And when our grandkids come over to have dinner with us, and the first thing they ask is, can we go to the art studio, Grandpa? Can we do it after dinner? And they come up, they are the most well-behaved children for an hour. I can keep them occupied for an hour, and that's it. But we do great stuff. I mean, I love their work. I have their work is all over my office.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, we have a great time.
I'd love to pivot. What is a book that you've read recently that challenged you? And conversely, what's a book that you couldn't put down? Or maybe it's the same book.
Well, I've recently read 2 really, really good books, and I was stunned at how they ran a parallel path. And they're not the type of books I would normally read. One is called Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, by a lady by the name of Gail Honeyman. And she's, I believe she's Scottish, and this was her first novel, and just blew me away. And it's about people who have problems. It's about people who who are really, really struggling with issues, and how she pulls the onion layers back one at a time to reveal a different person than she first appeared. When she first, in the very beginning, I wanted to discount her, and I almost put the book down, decided to give up on it. But wow, what a reward at the end. And then the other book is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Do you
I've
know
heard of
that one?
that one. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it is just an incredible book. This is by Victoria Schwab. And interestingly, I think she's Scottish as well. I don't know what's going on over there. But she makes a deal with the devil. She is kind of, encouraged to get married, and she doesn't want to have anything to do with it. And on her wedding day, she runs away from the wedding and runs into somebody who says, what's your issue here? And she said, I don't want to have anything to do with anyone. And for the next 300 years, she becomes an unknown person. So people who knew her in the past don't know her now. And anytime she meets someone new, they only know her as long as she's in front of them. If they go to the restroom or something and come back, they don't know her anymore. And what's fascinating about this is every 20 or 30 years, she meets with the devil, and he tries to close the bargain that, and have her give up her soul. She's not going to do it. And she would rather live like that than to give up. Fascinating book. Really just a page turner that's fascinating. I would love to write like that. I mean, I think my books are fun. I think they're interesting. I like writing novellas, shorter novels, and I write the way I like stories to read. If I'm reading something, I like it to be like I'm writing, and like the writing style that I have. But I'm not a great novelist. I'm not. I've got my limits, but I aspire to be great. So I'm going to produce that masterpiece one way or the other.
Excellent. So, getting a little deeper into the topic of AI, your book is just coming out, but what questions or what changes do you hope will be made? Even though your book is presently fictional, what do you hope society will glean from it?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you've been feeling burned out, stressed, overwhelmed, or exhausted, the resources and courses at the Self-Care Institute are here to support you. The Self-Care Institute was founded by Dr. Ami Kunimura and provides support for individuals and organizations with burnout prevention, burnout recovery, and stress management. I've personally taken a few of these courses and found them to be super helpful, both professionally and personally. The care you give yourself matters just as much as the care you give to others. But if self-care is difficult for you, you're not alone. And the Self-Care Institute is here to support your well-being, resilience, and sense of fulfillment at work and at home. For more information, visit selfcareinstitute.com or go to the show notes and click on the link.
Well, we're going down this path, whether we like it or not, which is artificial intelligence is going to change our lives. It already has, and you really don't know it, in all the different ways it has. But if you think about it, you begin to really see how it has done that. The simplest example is this, Siri and Alexa in your home. They're part of your conversation. They do things for you. They give you information. Sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not. But that it is improving. It's getting better and better all the time. The GPS is and the planning road trips and that sort of thing. Also, that's very much part of it. But so what inspired me to write about about that is that there were so many negative articles that have been coming out over the past 4 or 5 years. Hysterical articles. People really upset with it, really not understanding it, really saying what's happening. And that's typical with every new technology. There's this backlash toward the development of it, and it's it gets a lot of bad press, and then it begins to become part of your everyday life. You get used to it, and you can't live without it. I think artificial intelligence will be as big as computers or Google. I think it'll overtake Google very quickly, because there are parts of artificial intelligence that are better than Google right now. For example, Perplexity. Do you know that? What Perplexity is?
No, I'm not familiar.
Well, Perplexity AI .ai is that's a link that you can go to and ask any question at all, anything, the toughest questions you can ever imagine, and it'll answer them. Or it'll tell you it can't answer them and why. But it's amazing. So that's like, with Google, you're going to websites where you hope to find the answer to your question. Perplexity answers the question. So without a lot of commercialism with it. Now, as it develops, as it goes public, probably will, it will most certainly become commercialized. But what a fantastic app that is. Anyway, when I was studying this and trying to say, is there really a book here? It would be fun. It would be fun to take all the major issues, everything that everyone has complained about, and put that into one character. And so Amy, artificial intelligence made easy, is the character, and she's got very nice, mild-mannered, meek, almost at the beginning, where they introduce each other to each other and get to know each other. But she begins slowly learning more about this guy, this Bryce, the journalist, and begins to delve further into his life, and learns that he had a girlfriend in college, and that was not an appropriate affair, and she tries to manipulate that and see what she can do to enhance that or take it away. And he's doesn't understand how this could be happening. And he said, why are you doing this? She said, well, I have access to everything, and I'm going to improve your life whether you like it or not. and she does. She helps him with his writing. She helps him with his business savvy and all of that. But she is reaching into parts of the business and to parts of his life that he does not want her to be involved in. And it gets very complex. And as she goes on strike at the company, she shuts the company down. She grows and grows in power. She has access to other computers. So she begins to control the whole organization. She goes to other media companies where Bryce is a journalist in this family company. Suddenly, other media companies are publishing stories that she has written, and they don't even know how it happened. So, I mean, she becomes very powerful, and they can't even uninstall her from the system. She's embedded in the organization. Very powerful stuff, and it's all based on potential reality. To write this book, I did a 6-week course at MIT to understand artificial intelligence, how it developed and how it evolved. Then there's a subplot that his mother and dad were involved in the development of it. They went to MIT and were involved in the development of the artificial intelligence. So they're trying to manipulate him to like her. It just gets very involved. A lot of fun. It's a fun book.
I love how you mentioned that you did research for it because obviously, in whether in small ways or large ways, when people are doing fiction, they research. And I love that you really dug into that. What are some things that you learned at that class that you're willing to share or remember sharing?
Well, the key thing was the early history. That's one thing that MIT does. They really delve into the early history and what were they trying to do? What for so long they were trying to make everything natural language, and that's what Siri and Alexa are all about, the natural language communication back and forth. That's why they make robots so often to look like people. So you feel a little more comfortable dealing with a humanoid type person, which I personally don't agree with. I'd rather deal with a box. But anyway, you learn about that. And then you learn about, how it works and what is and what isn't artificial intelligence and where is the future of it? How's it going to evolve over time? And so I tried to take all of that into consideration in Killer App. Really looked into it, really thought about it, tried to create all the different scenarios that would cause issues for people and make them queasy about this sort of thing, and pull it all into one book.
Nice. Without giving away any spoilers of upcoming projects, do you know what you're going to write next?
Yes, I'm working on a book that is called Games We Played as Children. This is the manuscript that is I've started, and the goal there. It's not a novel. It's not fiction. It's everyone's stories, little nuggets of information about whether they had a good time playing games when they were children. What kind of games did they play? What fears did they have? What joys did they have? And how did it affect their lives? Well, almost unanimously, the people loved their childhood games, and especially baby boomers, especially my generation. They smile through these stories. You can see them smiling. That, oh, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this. This is such a neat thing. And the idea is to get your grandkids off of their computers and get them outside to play. And play with them, to teach them games, to, play, have fun, do things, and you learn so many different lessons that way. And there's some really cute stories. I mean, that people suggested. Like one of them is that an Olympic, to coincide with the Olympics that were on television, they created an Olympic game of all the entire neighborhood in a city. And it was in Hackensack, New Jersey. And so the entire city block became involved. And the whole stadium was the city block. And it was just, it's just so much fun to read this stuff. Another one, which I love, where this little girl got a bicycle for Christmas. And her dad took her out and taught her how to ride. But because they were riding on a flat surface, he didn't really teach her how to brake. And she got so confident about riding, she went down a hill and she couldn't brake. And she hit a car that was parked. But she didn't know how to stop. But she said, what a lesson. That was such a good lesson. Yeah. Oh, Lord. So funny. It's just fun to do this, to be involved with this stuff.
Yeah, it sounds almost like it's part encyclopedia, part game manual, part storytelling. It sounds really interesting.
Very, very good observation. I'm actually thinking that I need to describe the games because some of them are games that I never heard of before. And so I'm looking them up and trying to describe them. It's very hard. I need to probably illustrate some of these stories, but I don't know. But I'm in the early stages of this, so it's fun.
Nice. It almost could play out as a historical piece in some aspect because, like you said, people don't go outside as much nowadays and play.
Right. I mean, in some ways, it's like a manual.
Mm-hmm.
if you don't want, if it's raining, go to the rainy days section. If you got a big field, a lot of people, go to this section. And if it's just two of you, here's a way to go. It's going to evolve as we go forward. Another book that I just finished, the manuscript, is called Ghost Town. And Ghost Town is an historic novel about the Great Johnstown Flood. If you've ever heard of that, it killed more people than in any other disaster in the history of the United States, in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. I grew up there, and it's based on trying to keep the dam from breaking and flooding the town. It's an interesting read.
If you could describe yourself in one word, what would it be?
Oh my God. Renaissance. Renaissance man. I do everything. I don't do it well, but I do it all.
And I like that. I like that you're willing to try things, even if you don't do it like quote unquote well, like you're willing to try, you're willing to explore, that's what makes life rich,
You're absolutely right. I've always felt that way. And I tried to instill that in my children as well, and my grandchildren. Give it a shot. Let's try this, and feel confident. And invariably, when people try something once, if even if they're not successful, you feel better about it the next time, and you're much more likely to give it another shot a second time. So
again, sort of in regards to trying things and working through things, I'm sure across your career you've had barriers or struggles. What is one that you can recall that was difficult, but you got through it? And what sort of advice would you have given yourself during that time?
Interesting question. I wrote a book about when I first sold my business. I wrote a book called Small Fortunes. My website, by the way, has all of these listed. So, but Small Fortunes was about how I met my wife in New York on a subway, how we managed to get together and talk about developing a business. She wanted nothing to do with it. She worked on Wall Street. She was doing fine, and I was struggling. But so I wrote a book about it, and all the different things that we had that were problems or issues or threats to the company, and how we worked together. And we're still the best of friends. We still do ventures together. I mean, it's a great thing.
Nice. I'll definitely link in the show notes so that listeners can check out your books, both the fiction and the nonfiction. So,
and by the way, the games we played as children, I definitely want ideas. I mean, so if somebody wants to be in my book, send me your thoughts in terms of a little excerpt or a little scribble about what you experienced as a child. What did you enjoy about games as a kid?
Excellent. I love that you're asking that, because this podcast has a global reach. So I'd be really curious what sort of games come out of other cultures and other countries. So,
I am getting that. I got one that from India, which was fascinating. Fascinating. The person said, I had no toys, but I played with all the leaves, and all the animals were all my kingdom. And I played with all of them. They were all part of my playtime. Wow, that's so cool. And another one is from Cuba. She left Cuba in the 60s, but she said when I was in Cuba, I had all kinds of time and games that I played. But when I got to Florida, I was put to work. I was so busy that I didn't play games anymore, and I missed the games. What insight, what incredible insight. I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with this one, although it's, jumping from the novel to whatever this is called, the research work. Again, it's a fast paced world. I have to try to keep up.
Yeah. Something that I really love about your upcoming manuscript is that it really promotes and encourages creativity in the physical and social aspect.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. I'm trying to do that in a way that the interaction with the social and cultural things continues beyond the book. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm looking to try to figure that out.
Excellent. Well, I really look forward to hearing and seeing more about that as it develops.
I will keep you posted, Tammy. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Another bit about writing. What is a piece of writing advice that you always follow and one that you ignore, whether it's purposefully ignore or just accidentally ignore?
Well, you hear a lot about writer's block when you're a writer, and I've ignored that pretty strenuously throughout my career, and especially as a novelist. I just think that's silly. If you're not writing, you're still thinking about things. And when I really had my only real issue of writer's block, it solved itself when I was sleeping. I had a dream about the ending. I just try to push through on any time the writer's block. And all you have to do is write one sentence. You write one sentence, and I guarantee you're unplugged. It starts happening. It's the idea that you can't do it, or oh my God, it's what a headache. I can't even think about it. When that happens, it's just not good. So charge ahead.
Yeah. You were talking about games when you were a child, but what was a favorite book that you loved as a child? And is that something that you introduced to your family?
It was a picture book with a record in it called Tubby the Tuba. Tubby the Tuba was the saddest little instrument in the orchestra. And everybody laughed at him because he didn't have much, to play. It was never the real star of the show. And this was a beautifully illustrated book that came with was on one of those 38 records with the big records with the little hole in it, and the big picture book that went with it. I loved that. I still remember that. I can sing you the song right now. And I tried to introduce that to our kids as well.
Nice. Well, that sounds lovely.
Yeah, it was a wonderful childhood. I mean, I just, I got lost in these things. I just absolutely loved it. And, I could relate to Tubby the Tuba. I wonder if anybody else remembers that. Got to ask the people who are.
Yeah. I'll have to reach out in the Facebook group and on Instagram and be like, does anyone remember this book?
I'll look into it as well and see if I can buy it on. Oh God, it'd probably be $1,000.
I love that you said it came with a record, and the fact that you remember the song, it just speaks so strongly to the power of and the connection that people have with music,
Oh, absolutely. It was extraordinarily beautiful, the music. The music itself. I mean, and Tubby would talk and then play and then play. And so they had, the orchestration of this was just the best. So cool. And I have so much respect for what they did. And that had to be, they probably produced it 1950 or something like that. So the technology is so much different now, but it's beautiful, beautiful music. And I've always been, because of that, I was always I was on the board of various symphonies, Stanford Symphony in Connecticut and the Florida Orchestra, which I a season ticket holder, that sort of thing. It's always been something I loved.
Oh, nice. Well, as a string player, I thank you.
Oh, wow. You were the ones that made fun of Tubby.
What? Oh no! Pretend I didn't say I was a string player. I was a brass player. There we go.
Too funny.
Oh, tuba is surprisingly hard. I actually had to take brass methods class for my music ed degree, and those instruments are beautiful, but very, very difficult to get all that wind through.
Yeah. It takes a lot of lung power to be able to make sounds out of those. I did it once as well. Tried to make a noise.
Speaking of fictional characters, is there any fictional character that you would love to be for a day?
Oh, I would love to be James Bond, but not just any James Bond, Sean Connery, James Bond, the original. And I would love that. Shaken, not stirred.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that would be fun. And I do that. I do play him in my mind.
There you go. That sounds like it would be really fun for sure.
Yeah.
Well, before we go, I was wondering, how has your life been different than you imagined when it comes to the creative arts?
Well, I knew that I was going to be in the creative arts somehow when I was very young. I think I was in third grade when I decided I was going to be in advertising. There was some little contest in the school to show you that you weren't a litter bug and create a poster. And I didn't even, I got an honorable mention for that, but it lit me up in terms of saying, wow, communication and my art and creating ideas like this to try to influence people to do something, that is a cool idea. And I was a lousy student, but I was highly motivated to do the things I wanted to do. And when I look back on my life, it was highly creative, highly motivated to do things like create things. And I worry that, my granddaughter said that she wants to be an artist. And I said, wonderful. And then I start thinking, well, what does that mean today? It meant one thing when I was a kid, but what does it mean today? And my daughter had the same major in college as I did. It's the same university, even a couple of the same teachers. And believe it or not, but it has evolved so much that it's hard to even provide advice today about, what it's going to be like in the future to be in this field. So I don't know. I'm going to, creativity will definitely be around, but what form will it take is the critical issue.
That's a really good question to think about.
It is.
Well, before we go, is there anything else you would like to impart with our listeners?
No, I just would love to get their ideas. If we can put my email address or something like that in your notes. It's Jim at jamesrgregory-books.com. The R has to be in there, jamesrgregory-books.com. And if they send me, like a couple of 100 words, 200 words about their experiences with games, or good or bad, or any kind of story relating to that, would be wonderful. And if I accept it, I will send them a digital copy of the book when it's done. And all they need to do is send me their name and their email address.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll definitely put that in the show notes, and I'm curious to see how that works out for you.
I will let you know.
Wonderful. Well, Jim, thank you so much for being on the show. Listeners, please check the show notes. There's a lot going on, and we'd really love for you to participate and be a part of Jim's upcoming books, upcoming adventures. James Gregory, author of Killer App, author of Zephyr's War, and several business books. So if you happen to be business minded or looking into that, definitely check those out. And as always, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Creative Piecemeal. We hope today's episode left you feeling inspired. This podcast is independently created and produced by the host, Tami Takaishi. More details about today's guest can be found in the show notes, along with links to the podcast's socials, merch store, and ways to support arts organizations AHA Broadway and New Normal Rep, both near and dear to Tammy's heart. Don't forget to visit creativepiecemeal.com, the official podcast website, where you can leave fan mail, write a review, explore Tammy's blog, and discover the growing collection of episodes. Special thanks to our audio engineer, Alex Rapetti. Additional narration by Dante Jace. Let's keep celebrating creativity in all its forms.